Yeah, thank you very much, Darren. Good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome to the South African shores. As I just elaborated a little bit earlier, I'm still sitting in the Eastern Europe part in Romania, where the European winter already hit us bad. So I'm sitting here in the cold, and I'm a little bit jealous about the environment that you guys are currently sitting in. Yeah, it's been a great pleasure. Taryn approached me to more or less asking if ENCONA is willing and prepared to support this event for HESTO in the framework of the Quality Month. Of course, we support that. I think the corporate social responsibility framework of ENCONA and to support our clients in specifically difficult times like these ones, we always find opportunities to assist and jump in. So from that perspective, of course, it's a great pleasure and also honor to provide you this webinar, any free of charge. It's a cool thing to do so, but also thank you very much for considering ENCONA to provide this for you. Really much appreciated. So the request came in to talk about process ownership. And the ones of you that are aware of this situation, this process ownership found its way into the IATF books with the latest version, which came out and was published in 2016. So already 5 years ago. And the reason, I think, I would assume this is one of the reasons as to why the request came particularly for this subject, is that we currently, as we are serving around about 600 automotive clients in nearly 50 countries worldwide, we're making the same experience that organizations find it difficult to establish effective process owners. And I think before we hit the topic as to what steps need to be done in order to achieve that, I think we should talk a little bit about the current situation and what is the current setups in the organizations that we, as we observe it around the world. And there's really, it's not a South African specific issue. We really observe this everywhere, worldwide. It's just the situation that we are in. So maybe starting with the first point, and I was told that also the executive members are joining this meeting. So thank you very much for making time. So the first point I would like to elaborate on is, which is a general statement for the implementation of an IATF management system in which the process ownership is forming part. And when somebody carefully reads the book, and this is the biggest situation we already have, is where the book says the decision to implement a management system according to IATF should be based on a strategic management decision. And think about that. Every time when the executive members of an organization are implementing anything, any new system, any new technology into the organization, before they make that strategic decision, they sink their teeth into this topic. They read up, they follow up, they learn about it in order to support that decision process. So there is quite a fair amount of knowledge about this new technology or strategic point that needs to be implemented in the organization. And IATF says that it should be a strategic decision. And here's the situation. But what if this decision has been made for the executive board already? Either by a client, where he says, look, without an IATF certification, you cannot deliver any parts or components to the automotive industry. And secondly, if you're in a corporate world, the central functions, the corporate world tells every plant in the world you have to go for IATF. So what happened now is the following. From getting all the necessary knowledge to implement a strategic decision, which was coming from an executive board, we didn't do so for the IATF in most of the cases, because that decision has been made, either the client or by the corporate structure. So you're sitting there with a plant in South Africa where some interested parties made the decision for you to implement such an IATF. Consequently, and why is this relevant? Consequently, there was no more need to really get into the books and understand what is the potential power of this. We're just having, on the executive level, on the management level, insufficient knowledge about the true potential as to what this book can actually deliver for us. And we look at it as a quality management system. So it starts with quality. Okay, we have a quality department. So a quality department must take care of that. And this is the situation that we have in most of the organizations. And I'm not talking necessarily about HESTO, but if you find yourself in that scenario, then feel free to do so. I'm just sharing the information that we get around the world. So it becomes a system for the quality department, and they have to drive it. So consequently, what's going to happen now is that all the other departments, and I will elaborate on that a little bit later, are disconnected in many areas from the management system. Consequently, it is the quality managers or the quality management system representatives. Every time when an audit comes, may it be a customer or maybe a third-party certification auditor, it is the quality managers that walk with this auditor throughout the organization and trying to spoon feed and rescue the world and babysit all the department heads and process owners. And that's clearly not the idea as to IATF should be effectively implemented into an organization, because in true reality, it is not a quality management system made to be driven by the quality department. It's actually an enterprise. It's actually an operating system for the whole organization. So everybody, every department head, every process owner needs to come to the party. And consequently, starting with the top dogs, with the executive boards, all right? Because as long as it's not important to effectively implement such a system on the exec board, it's not going to become important for anybody below. And that is a huge disadvantage in which we are now operating a management system in general, simply because the system doesn't start working for the organization. We are putting extra efforts in to maintain something because an auditor wants to see some evidence documents. And those extra amounts in money and time is actually resources that we would need for different topics to drive an effective system. So that is not a real great foundation, if I may call it that, to implement an effective management system in general. And then we're going to elaborate a little bit on the on the process ownership, which according to IATF is a requirement specifically for the exec, where it clearly says top management exec shall identify process owners. Top management shall make sure that the process owners that have been assigned understand the roles and responsibilities of that process ownership, and top management shall make sure that they are competent to fill the post. And that is one of the several directly addressed requirements of IATF, specifically for the top down. In reality, what has been done, due to the fact that we never really sunk our teeth into what's actually behind that. We never really picked up this obligation to effectively put process owners aside. And what technically happened in practical terms, what happened, that all the existing department managers have been now taken on top over the process ownership role. That's what we see in 9 out of 10 cases. And yet again, I'm not talking about HESTO in particular. I haven't seen or I haven't audited your organization. So I'm just sharing all the experiences. And if you find yourself in this framework, then it should be an awareness factor. So every time when I audit an organization, I said, sir, you've been assigned as a process owner, but you're also a department manager of this and that. And I started asking him and said, can you elaborate a little bit as to what is the difference between a department manager and a process owner? And then it's getting silent. Simply because it's apparently unclear. And IATF doesn't say that a department manager cannot be also a process owner, but and I will elaborate a little bit later as to what actually the idea is of implementing process owners, is there's just insufficient knowledge about that. So when you audit now this department head as a process owner, it just reveals all the shortfalls compared to the requirements as IATF wants the top manager to implement an effective process owner. So we need to understand that. And I will also elaborate on that companies just find it difficult to identify a process. What is the difference between a department and a process? So, typical example of human resource. Human resource, is that the name of a department or is it a process? But we will come to that. What I do see currently out there is when I ask, especially managers and executive board, and said, have you ever actually thought about as to what is the definition of a department? And you get all these inputs and and I said, well, whether you have or not, I've done this for you. Okay? And if you look into this definition, it will tell you that this is a major territorial administrative subdivision. So not only that we run our departments like a territory, we also subdivide ourselves from the common sense of the organization. And why is this relevant? If you go into this another term here that is stipulated in bold and underlined, I ask them, have you ever thought about as to what is the definition of a territory? Because that word territory actually comes from the animal kingdom. And it actually says that this is an area that an animal defends against intruders, especially of the same species. So I tell these managers, I said, do yourself a favor and just replace that word animal by human being. And then I ask him, is that the situation where we find ourselves in? That we have in our departments all these kings and queens sitting, basically defending their territory against intruders. And there's a variety of practical examples. So the production manager would say, well, guys, my KPIs would be all green, but HR, they didn't provide me 5 direct workers that I requested 2 months ago. So if they would do the job, my KPI would be very green. My dashboard would be green. And furthermore, my dashboard would be green, but maintenance is failing to upkeep technical availability of my equipment. So if they would do the job, my dashboard would be green. And that is a very human reaction. So coming back to what we said, to defend my territory as a department from any intruders that tries to put me on the guilt stage, shall be protected under all circumstances. So we're living too much still out in the industry in this silo world. So every department considered to be a silo that is run and managed by a king or a queen, and these territories and this department must be protected against intruders in such a way that it's never my fault. So it cannot be my fault because my area is clean. So please go to HR, go to engineering, go to production, and find the fault somewhere else because my territory is clean. So consequently, human beings, and I'm also an industrial psychologist, so I could give you a little bit of a background as to why we operate that way, is we start to play ping pong. So whose fault is it? And in playing ping pong, we are losing a lot of efficiency in order to manage a process. And if you look at an MPI process, a new product implementation, project management, you're just launching a new product, okay? With all your process development, industrialization, validation phase of product and process, PPAP phase into launch phase. And if you look at that, there's technically every faculty of the organization must come to the party and work together for that temporary limit for as long as the project runs. But every faculty that is now starting to be implemented in this project is running different agendas. So they don't necessarily agree always what the HR guy says and what the purchasing guy says, what the quality guys say. They run on their agendas. But at the end of the day, there's a customer waiting, and all he wants is a PPAP submission on time. He wants a first time through, so he doesn't want to reject the PPAP representing the quality aspect of the project. And he has zero time, he has got no time for all our cats and dog fights that we run between the silos and departments defending our territories. Makes it extremely inefficient. So consequently, many submissions lead into late submission or reject rates, which is a very costly exercise. And organizations most of the times don't even know about it because we don't run very seldomly a project cost calculation. So every time you have an iteration loop, when a PPAP gets, for argument's sake, rejected, we don't really know how much that really costs us because you got to redo it again and redo it again. So that is also not a very ideal situation to implement effective process owners. Okay, so we have on the one stage that all the department heads are too much separated from the ideology of IATF or of your business operating system. And on the other side, we have the silo effect most of the times where department heads are just trying to protect the territory against intruders. So not ideal foundation to implement now these process owners. And this territory, as I said, it comes from the animal kingdom. And you know how it is. It's the same thing with human beings. That is that Highlander principle. There can only be one. Okay. So on the left-hand side, you see this alpha apex predator male lion, and he owns all the ladies in there. And he makes babies, but amongst the babies, there's also male cubs. The male cubs start to grow, and every one of you out there that is a parent, if I might call it that, when the youngsters, the lighties grow up, they start more and more challenging us, questions and disagreeing and whatsoever. And it's the same effect with humans. And in the lion pride, basically the juvenile will grow to a stage where he starts to challenge the old man, the alpha, the one and only. And eventually it comes to a fight. And as it is in fights out there, one wins and one loses. And the loser has to go. And the same with human beings in that protection of these territories. That's also what lions do. So consequently, what we need to understand when we run our organization, are we doing this on an adult level where we accept somebody else's opinions and not necessarily always have to agree, but at least respect as a starting point? Or are we running the organization like a lion with all our kings and queens in departments that spending too much energy to protect their territories, for which no customer has any time, because in actual effect is if you have a little bit of a different display of an organization chart, and you have all these silos or departments, however you want to call that, is that they're all separated. Too much separated, if I might call it that. But this is actually how a process runs, especially for an MPI, for a new product implementation. So every faculty must come to a party. And at the end, at the process end, there's a client waiting, can be an internal or an external customer that really has zero time for all your cats and dog fights, making the process flow very inefficient in communication and information flow and whatnot. You know the difficulties about the implementation of new projects or products or assemblies. So this is the current situation as to why we have that situation, and it does make it difficult simply because of one reason. I come back to this later, and that has something to do in psychology with different standpoints of view. So in other words, if you look here in the center at any issue or a project or a problem, whatever the case may be, and you have this interdisciplinary approach, actually people need to come work together from different silos and departments. And maybe you want to start with the quality guy. So the quality guy is the one that has his personal standpoint of view to this issue, project, or problem. But if you follow the lines there, this is his standpoint of view, and it also borders you all the area of the issue, project, or problem that he sees from his individual standpoint of view and related to his tasks in his department. So he sees a fair portion of this whole, but does he see the whole context of the whole problem and project? Very unlikely. Are you with me? So, but here now comes the engineering lady in this particular case, and she's coming with her individual standpoint of view. And she sees different aspects of this project because she's running on a different agenda. So consequently, engineering and quality are making decisions that the other department head or the other function, I should say, does not necessarily understand. And you often have that in the organization. Why on earth did purchasing do that? Why? Especially in this famous love and hate relationship between purchasing and quality. Because purchasing is driving the price, quality is driving quality, and here's a clash. So they don't necessarily understand as to where this guy is coming from and why is all these decisions been made. simply because the purchasing guy or the engineering guy, and you can roll this out for any other multiple functions that have to come to the party and work on something, on a common goal, so to speak, they have all their individual standpoint of view to an issue, project, or problem. And here's the crux. Here's the crux. Every person that is involved in this process, from his individual standpoint of view, is always making the right decisions, because that's the portion of the issue that he sees. And based on that, he's driving his decision process. If it's always the correct decision in the whole context, don't know, but very unlikely. And this is where friction's going to build up, because people now don't understand as to why are these decisions been made? Why is that information laid? Why has it not been communicated? Why? So we're creating a lot of negative energy in any interdisciplinary approach, because over and above, they represent the agendas of their departments, which is their primary interest, which is perfectly okay, but always from someone's individual standpoint of view. So it's very important to operate in a process network, okay, to have a common view. Let's say on this picture here, you would actually need to go in the bird view in 3D and all look together. So we all have the common look at the complete issue, project, or problem, in order to sort it out, which we don't have. So those are three fundamental disadvantages to currently implement effective process ownerships. And the fourth one is that we observed it every single time. We just mixing up department names that we call process with processes. If you look at a process map of any organization, you will always find a mixture between processes that are really processes and department names. So consequently, after 2016, an IATF auditor should go, I'm not saying it's happening all the time, would go into, say, HR department, and would talk to the department head, which is now the process owner, and would say then, okay, Mr. or Mrs., I understand you're the department head. You also call yourself a process owners, but can you please tell me as to what processes have you identified within that department that you call HR? And consequently, and most of the times you only get to see procedures about training and development, because that is stipulated in the book. But the idea of IATF is to understand as to what needs to be identified. And then the person will say, now we have a recruitment process. We have a training and development process. Also payrolling sits with us. So those would be HR related processes within the department that is called HR. And you can do this in any other department as well. So we find it currently very difficult to identify and the book is clear. It says the organization shall identify all necessary processes needed, basically, to drive a successful business. So not quality department, business. So everybody must come to the party. But we don't come to the party because the general knowledge about the standard is insufficient. It's mainly driven by the quality guys. And now they spoon feed and babysit and support and rescue the world for every audit that is coming. The two interested parties from the 2016 version in IATF is who the biggest change is for the top dogs, the execs. Simply because if it's not a strategic decision, if it's not important for the exec boards, okay, we have to come to the party more. We have to engage more into this business operating system, And the second one is the quality guys, because they are still too much in that mode to rescue everybody. The more and more you rescue and spoon feed and babysit all the process owners with regards to the management system requirements, okay, the more and more the process owners feel comfortable because we have a quality guy here, and then they're also not going to come to the project. So the second call is for the quality guys. You must launch a controlled step-down process to stop spoon-feeding babysitting. Elsewise, your process owner will never come forward. They feel way too comfortable. Everything has been done by the quality guy. Usually when I do, not usually, in all the cases, and I make that very clear, I'm also an IATF certification auditor. In the opening meeting, I say, guys, listen, you, Mr. Quality Manager, I put you on pause. Okay, and you please answer only the questions that I directly address to you. Elsewise, all the process owners have my undivided attention. So put him out of the game. And then you can see what's happening. Process owners not even finding procedures in the database that are relevant for the process, in a very worst case. So these are the four, to sum it up. Not a strategic decision has been made for you. Secondly, we find it difficult to model all the processes correctly and as we need them. Then we have the department versus process ownership. And then we have those silo buildings where people just protect their territories, not coming to a management of a network. So that leaves us in a situation today that we really believe that such a complex organization like a production company, like a manufacturing company, like you are, or assembly, doesn't matter. That is such a complicated and complex network of processes that need to tie into one another. And we really believe today that we can control the complexity of all these process interfaces with a stack of turtle diagrams and paper procedures. We must be out of our minds to believe that. Process management is way too complex. And your stack of, I don't know if you work with turtle diagrams or procedures. Procedures are also cut off. You know? So there's no way to manage the complexity in the interfaces, which is a task for a process owner. No department manager can drive and manage processes as stipulated in the IATF as a department manager. Impossible. And that has nothing to do with your skill set. There's nothing to do with your experience set. It's just impossible. It's just too complex. And that leads me to the statement of actually what the idea was of the IATF is to identify these processes and sub-processes and share the accountability of these processes on a broader range of people within the organization, and not just the exec level and the first management level. That's the actual idea of it. Bring more people in, encourage them, coach them to take accountability for smaller processes. Not for they can still report to a department head, so you don't have to completely re-engineer the organization. But that's the idea, basically, of implementing these effective process owners. The process owner, folks, is nothing else but should think and act like an entrepreneur. And for the ones of you that are not familiar, we all know the terminology of entrepreneur. Entrepreneur, you start a business, it's your business, you make all the shots, the calls, An entrepreneur is acting like an entrepreneur, but within an organization, in this process, in a business that doesn't belong to him. So entrepreneur. But these people must have the complete mindset of acting and behaving like like an entrepreneur. And that is unfortunately not everybody's cup of tea. It takes leadership skills. It's not only advisable to bring the best people in place there because they have the most experiences with the tasks that need to be done in the process. There's a golden rule. The golden rule, there is a certain portion that process owners should work in the business, but they must have a specific time frame every day to work on the process, on his business, to drive the continuous improvement and all that. And ITF, you won't find this in the book. That's a little bit unfortunate. Maybe also one of the contributors as to why we struggle to get these roles and responsibilities together. But in our ITF trainings as third-party auditors, of course, we get all these informations. And this is the list of process owner duties as per the IATF. And I don't want to talk you through each and every of this task. We're also going to share this presentation with you from what Taryn has told me. But definitely what is important is the last one, and for a reason I put this in bold, the very last one, improve interfaces with other processes. And that is a super important thing that's called relation management. We come from the silos, everybody's an enemy that says something against my department, all right? And now these people need to do relation management to other process owners in order to get the communication going and the work together going and the support going. And that takes a fair amount of emotional intelligence. And this is the next issue that we're having out there. We are bombarding our manufacturing processes, driving the efficiencies and stuff like that, and new technologies, new techniques, everything technical and But we're not taking care of our human capital in such a way as that we promote and coach process owners to become networkers, because networking is power. Networking breaks down all the risk factors in your interfaces between one process to another process, because you have that relation to the other process owners. And that's the same thing in your private life. Wherever you just have an email address or a name to something versus you have a personal relationship, all doors open. And if you're just a number or just a colleague, and doors won't necessarily open if it's not aligned with my tasks and with my points of interest. It is simple. And relation management internally is just as important as you have the relationship to your external clients. That's another portfolio. But internally, and that is not everybody's cup of tea. Simply because we are too much living in an ego-driven society. Okay, me first, and that's the killer of networking and relation management. So you got to be very careful as to who needs to be assigned, and I can tell you that much. And I'm running around in this industry since 30 years now. There hasn't been one single company where I could have went back to the execs and said, "Listen, this guy, this guy, this guy." They are HPs. Take care of them. High potentials. And you don't find them because they are hidden somewhere in your organization doing tasks. And nobody realizes that he actually has a wonderful potential to be a leader and powerful to manage processes. So every organization has them. If they come forward, if we find them, it's another discussion, but they're always available. I don't think I've ever come into a company where I didn't find HPs. And they're not necessarily managers yet, but they're just great potential. As a psychologist, I can tell you, I read people, very quickly and also check them and scan them. Okay, so this is quite a variety of, and it makes it clear when you go through this list that also this discussion about here somewhere in the middle to review not only the effectiveness, because we are so much in a KPI driven world, and the responsibility is also to drive the review of the efficiency of a process. And here's the deal: in your manufacturing and assembly processes, you hit this perfectly, since I can think and since I'm involved. But have you ever thought about reviewing the efficiency on support processes? And the simple answer is no. No. And this leads to another issue as to why the process owners don't get effective, is because they're driven on the effectiveness, on the target. But I can tell you one thing: I've seen companies get out of business with a green dashboard, simply because the efficiency was just terrible. The process owner understands that effectiveness and efficiency is brother and sister in my process. So I cannot only maintain a green dashboard, I also understand what are the resources and money that I put in to be green. And that can go out of balance very quickly. And then this famous Machiavelli said, guys, people do things because we've always done it that way. Simply because people love their comfort zone. So we keep on doing things like we've always done it that way. And believe it or not, I was just at a training at Daimler plant. And there were 15 people sitting in there, and the HR generalist came and gave, after the training, 15 A4 papers feedback to all the 15 delegates. And they were giving all their remarks handwritten in these feedback forms. And then she collected it, and then she was just computerizing paper by paper in the computer. In the 21st century, friends, we must be out of our minds. And but people do things because it's always done that way, and I know it, it's comfortable. So not reviewing, not encouraging and coaching your process owners to review the efficiency will kill your innovation in your management system, which will bite you somewhere down the line, because innovation is now needed and technologies are available to drive these steps. But you cannot do this on department and silo level. It's just too much. It's just too complex. So you need a broader range of people that having smaller segments of processes that they drive and manage. They can still then report to the department heads. There's no problem. So it's quite a variety, and it should show you that a process owner, it's quite a skills package that needs to be done, not only from the educational side, but also from the soft skill side. Human capital is just not a focus point. Emotional intelligence, for argument's sake. We just take everything personal, and that creates emotions, and the emotions triggers an action, and then it goes its way of fighting, and having discrepancies and creating this permanent negative energy in the organization. But we're all living in a field of energy. So you guys are all energetically connected. So every time you think bad about someone, in practical terms, you would say karma is a bitch. But it's scientifically proven. You don't have to believe it. You can say he's talking nonsense, but you cannot run away from it because it's even measurable today. So consequently, it is really, really important to get a couple of things right from the basic understanding in order to get these process owners effectively implemented. And just to summarize that, yeah, those are the steps. it basically starts, and those all are 1969-49 requirements. You need to understand that in order to implement something, you need to get the skills and knowledge set right for the organization. We haven't done so. Another example would be enterprise risk management, which also came in 2016 into this IATF. And if you see those risk management Excel sheets that they run around in the industry, just simply tells you we just have no clue. It's just to show something to an auditor and tick the box. Nothing to do with effective. Simply because in this clause, which says, here the second one, the bold one, when addressing changing needs and trends, there are new trends out there. The organization shall consider its current knowledge and must understand, do we have this knowledge for enterprise risk management? Or do we just want to tick a box for an auditor? It's always up to you, but you will find out really that there's no sufficient knowledge about how to implement an effective enterprise risk management concept, which again is an exec level duty and responsibility. Okay. So once you've done that, you need to understand the organization of the context, because if the process owner doesn't have the understanding of the organization and the context, it's difficult for him to set up his process management system. Let's put it that way. So you need to identify and determine all these external and internal issues. But for the ones of you that are not familiar with that, okay, here's some examples. These are examples for external issues, okay, from the marketplace, from the technology, social issues, economic issues. So you find issues that need to be determined because they all go into the framework of managing those processes. That's why you just do what the procedure says, and the procedure is 15 years old, and we do things because we've always done it that way. But we need to get that innovation grade in. That needs to be promoted also by the exec board permanently by implementing those effective process owners. Give them that framework of learning and understanding and changing. External issues, there's more political, cultural, legal. There's some internal issues from human side. Human side is very, very critical. Human capital is not considered on the same level like technology and production, unfortunately. There's also these pestle charts that can illustrate. I don't know if you heard about that. Give you a nice graphical overview. There's also some softwares, freewares out there to visualize that for you. And because those issues can have a negative impact. So it drives the process ownership, but it also drives your enterprise risk management. If you don't understand all the issues that we're dealing with throughout the organization and process owners, execs usually know about it. So we need to have those contexts, and we need to understand all the interested parties' expectations and needs. What are their requirements? Who are the interested parties? The customers, the employers, legal, shareholders, society, suppliers, and employees. Managing people today is actually meaning managing expectations. So if we lose the engagement with the people, how do we get the expectations right? That's why they always do what you tell them, what you expect as a manager. And works, but it could work a lot better. Let's put it that way. And we need to identify the processes correctly. So the organization shall determine the processes needed for and I say it's now for the business operating system, not for the quality management system, to understand where do we need our process owners and how they need to be managed. This is a practical example of ENCONA here. And you can see, it's a little bit, And you also see we have those department heads, but this is just the headliner. So underneath here, you will see what human resource related processes have we identified, or what sales and marketing processes have we done. And then EOS would stand for ENCONA Operating System. In many companies, it still says Quality Management System, but it's an operating system for us. And it's all automated. So every procedure is incorporated in automated workflow. So this is where we still find a huge mix between departments and processes. And then once those processes are identified, then we go into this process ownership. That again is a top management responsibility to identify them, to find them, to make sure they understand the roles and responsibilities, and to make sure that they're competent. Now that we understand that they need to think and act like entrepreneurs, they need a lot of soft skills, they need a lot of coaching, they need a lot of management and leadership skills to manage the process, especially in the process interactions. And this is where we just see too much disconnect, if I may call it that. And that should be a way forward. Are there any questions from your side, folks? We already hit into the hour. Hour didn't spend. There's probably a lot of information that you didn't really like to hear. I would assume, but you must understand this. Our credo in ENCONA is to help organizations. That's what we are here for. But in order to help people, you sometimes need to rattle the cage a little bit. You cannot just print blue skies if the sky is not blue. But there is by no means, there's no ill will or ill intent to be insultive or offensive towards you. Our credo is to help, but sometimes when you want to help, you need to call a spade, as we say in South Africa. So please don't take this in any sense personal. But in the event that you find yourself in certain areas of my speech here, it's all fixable, but it all starts with the execs. So, because if the execs don't come to the party, the transition will fail. That's clear as something. Okay. All right, guys. I'm technically finished with my. I don't know if everybody understood what I was saying. Technically, I'm through with my content, and I was asking if there are any questions from your side that I can answer for you.
From my side, because I've just met our director of commercial that they're rushing to fourth meeting business. So what we will do, I will share the recording once I have it from Terrain, and because we will do management review early December, there will be a question definitely on the subject because it's the burning point. And I will keep you in the loop for further education and assistance.
Cool, no problem.
Yes.
All right, guys.
That is very important to us.
Fantastic. Let's do it that way.
Yes. Yes.
All right. So I wish you all the very best. Have a nice week ahead, and we stay in contact.
Okay, we'll do. Have a lovely weekend, fella.
You too. Bye-bye.